In this game, the world champion Mikhail Tal sacrificed his queen for 2 pieces. As a result, Tal's remaining pieces were centralized and extremely active, while his opponent's pieces were completely disorganized and unable to defend the king, which let Tal start a deadly king hunt, and on move 25 the game was over. Tal's opponent Toran started with c4, playing the English opening. Tal replied with e5, knight c3, d6, g3, f5. Tal plays actively right in the opening. And white plays d4, immediately attacking black's strong pawn center. e4, Tal crosses the center of the board and exerts pressure on white's position. But white immediately attacks this strong pawn. 2 times it's attacked by the pawn and the knight. That's why Tal plays knight f6, defending the pawn. But after bishop g2, white attacks the pawn for the 3rd time, and it turns out that Tal cannot retain this strong pawn. That's why he captures on f3. Knight takes f3, g6. Tal is going to fianchetto his bishop and attack the d4 pawn. Short castle, bishop g7, e4. White again plays actively in the center. F takes e. Of course, white cannot capture the pawn immediately, but there is a simple move. Knight g5, attacking the pawn 3 times, and black, of course, cannot defend it. That's why Tal simply castled kingside, and now knight takes e4. Knight takes e4, white exchanges the rooks too, and then captures on e4. At first sight, Tal is behind in development, as his queenside pieces aren't developed, but with his next 3 moves, Tal will develop all of them. First, knight c6 with tempo, attacking the weak d4 pawn. That's why white played bishop e3, defending it. Then Tal developed his bishop, attacking the knight. Of course, it's defended, but it turns out that the next natural move, rook e8, will come with tempo, attacking the knight. Besides that, the bishop is also placed on the e-file, so the bishop will also turn into the target of the rook. Queen d2 and rook e8, threatening simply to win the knight. That's why knight g5. And here you can pause the video and try to find Tal's strong move. So you probably found the standard exchange sacrifice, and that's exactly what Tal did. Rook takes e3, but you had to find the continuation, because white of course didn't capture the rook, as that would have lost on the spot after simple bishop takes d4, and the queen would be pinned and lost. But white of course saw this standard exchange sacrifice and prepared bishop d5 check instead of capturing the rook. And after king h8, knight f7 check. So now if king returns to g8, then white has perpetual check. Simply knight h6 check, double check, and after king h8, again knight f7 check. So white was ready to accept the draw. However, not Tal. He prepared the queen sacrifice. After knight f7 check, instead of returning to g8, he captured on f7. And after bishop takes f7, we can see that Tal sacrificed his queen just for 2 pieces, from material point of view. But if we look deeper into the position, we will see that black's remaining pieces are extremely active. Besides 2 pieces, Tal will also get the d4 pawn, and it's not just a pawn, it's the defender of the e5 square. So after the disappearance of the d4 pawn, the knight will become even more active. It will move on e5 square. And now let's look at white pieces. The rook isn't doing anything, the bishop is out of play, and after knight moves on e5, thanks to this bishop, knight e5 will come with tempo, because the bishop will be attacked, and the king is all alone. It hasn't any defenders. Only the queen can defend the king. However, all black pieces will participate in the attack of the king. So 2 bishops, the knight and the rook, and the only queen will be unable to defend the king. So Tal starts his king hunt. Rook d3, attacking the queen. Now, if queen g2, Tal gives the following variation. Bishop takes d4 check. Now, if king f1, then simply knight e5, with tempo, centralizing the knight, attacking the bishop, and after bishop d5, knight g4, threatening deadly knight e3 with a fork, winning the queen. That's why rook e1, defending the e3 square. However, still knight e3 check, rook takes, followed by bishop d3 check, which would be simply deadly. Or after bishop takes d4 check, if instead of king f1, king moves to h1, then again knight e5, of course, again with tempo, attacking the bishop, and after bishop d5, c6, bishop e4, and a strong move, rook d2, attacking the queen. And after queen takes d2, bishop takes e4 check. It turns out that the king doesn't have any moves. White must play queen g2, and of course after bishop takes g2 check, king takes g2. The endgame is absolutely winning for black, as black has two pieces and a pawn for a rook, which is more than enough. After rook d3, however, instead of queen g2, white played queen e2, but it isn't any better, because again, bishop takes d4 check, king g2, and again knight e5, centralizing the knight, and of course again with tempo. Now, if bishop d5, then simply c6, and the bishop will fall. After bishop e4, simply rook e3 with double attack, attacking the queen and the bishop. So next move, on his next move, Tal would capture the bishop too in this variation. That's why after knight e5, instead of defending, saving the bishop, which was actually impossible, white played rook d1, hoping to exchange the rooks and ease the pressure. And of course, Tal avoided the exchange, as the attacking side should avoid the exchanges. That's why Tal, of course, played rook e3, attacking the queen. Now, if queen d2, Tal gives the following variation. Bishop e4 check, king h3, knight f3, attacking the queen and defending the bishop. As you see, black pieces are very harmoniously placed. They defend each other and they attack in a very harmonious way. So after the queen is under attack and after queen a5, simply bishop f5 check, king g2. Now, instead of king g2, if g4, then knight e1 check, discovered check, and the knight also takes away the g2 square from the king, and after king h4, bishop f6 check, g5, rook h3 checkmate. And if after bishop f5 check, instead of g4, white plays king g2, then simply rook e2 check, and after king takes f3, rook f2 checkmate. That's why after rook e3, white played queen f1, but it is losing on the spot. Bishop e4 check, king h3, rook f3, attacking the queen, queen e2, and bishop f5 check. Now, if king returns to g2, then simply rook f2 check, and that would lead to the exchanges and to the winning endgame for black. Again, black has two pieces and a pawn for the rook, and that's absolutely winning for black. Or, instead of king g2, if the king moves forward to h4, then simply g5 check. Now, if the king captures on g5, then black would capture the bishop with tempo, check. So in this case, black would get the third piece for the sacrificed queen, which is sufficient equivalent. And besides that, the king hunt would continue. So black would continuously create checkmating threats to the white king. And if after g5 check, instead of capturing g5, the king moves to h5, then simply bishop g4 check. As you see, again, the harmony, the knight defends the bishop, and after king captures on g5, simply rook f5 check with the discovered attack on the queen. And white would lose the queen, and the king hunt would, of course, continue. That's why after bishop f5 check in this position, white resigned. And now I recommend watching a game in which Tal made 7 consecutive knight moves, which had a devastating effect, and eventually he sacrificed his queen to checkmate his opponent. But first, like this video and subscribe, as it's really helpful for the channel growth.